They called her the Mouse. In the cutthroat world of high-stakes international art dealing, silence is usually a sign of weakness, and Elena Vance was silent. For 10 years, she stood in the shadow of her husband, Marcus Thorne, the charismatic owner of the Thorne Gallery in London's Mayfair district. Marcus was a shark in a bespoke Savile Row suit, a man who could sell ice to an Eskimo and a forgery to the Louvre. Everyone assumed Elena was just decoration, a quiet, plain woman he had plucked from obscurity because she wouldn't ask questions while he entertained mistresses on yachts in Monaco. Marcus certainly thought so. He often joked to his business partner, a brutal Russian oligarch named Viktor Volkov, that Elena was the perfect wife because she was deaf, dumb, and blind to the real world. On the eve of the auction of the century, Marcus was particularly insufferable. He was about to sell a rediscovered Rembrandt, titled The Shadow Merchant, expected to fetch over 150 million. "Look at her, Victor," Marcus sneered, swirling a 50-year-old scotch as Elena sat quietly in the corner of his plush office, mending a tear in an ancient tapestry with a needle and thread. "She thinks she's contributing. It's adorable. Tomorrow we become gods and she'll still be sewing in the corner." Victor, a man whose eyes were as cold as the Siberian tundra, didn't laugh. "Careful, Marcus. The quiet ones observe. Are you sure the provenance is watertight? The buyer is nervous. The provenance is impeccable because I created it?" Marcus laughed. "And the painting is flawless because I had the best forger in Europe paint it over a worthless 17th century canvas. Even the carbon dating will pass. We are untouchable." Elena didn't look up, but her needle paused for a fraction of a second. Marcus had forgotten one crucial detail about his mouse of a wife. Before she was Elena Thorne, she was Elena Dubois, daughter of Henry Dubois, the greatest art authenticator in Paris, a man Marcus had framed for forgery 15 years ago, driving him to suicide to cover his own tracks. Marcus didn't marry a trophy. He married the only person trained by the master himself to spot his lies. The next 3 days didn't just dismantle an auction, they unraveled an international criminal syndicate. The morning of the auction, the atmosphere in the gallery was electric. Billionaires, sheikhs, and museum curators filled the room. Marcus stood at the podium, basking in the adoration. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice like velvet. "Today history is made. The Shadow Merchant." As the velvet curtain pulled back to reveal the masterpiece, a collective gasp filled the room. But it wasn't a gasp of awe. It was a gasp of horror. The painting was melting. The rich oils of the Dutch master were dripping down the canvas in thick, grotesque sludge. The face of the merchant was dissolving into a brown smear. Marcus froze. The color drained from his face. What is the meaning of this? Security! "It's called a thermal catalyst reaction, Marcus," a calm voice cut through the panic. Elena stepped out from the wings of the stage. She wasn't wearing her usual gray cardigan. She was dressed in a sharp black power suit, her hair pulled back, her eyes blazing with a fire no one had ever seen. "Elena, get off the stage! You're hysterical!" Marcus roared, sweating furiously. "I'm not hysterical, Marcus. I'm methodical," Elena said into a microphone she had clipped to her lapel. She turned to the stunned audience. "For the last 6 months, while my husband thought I was sewing, I was accessing his private vault. I replaced the forgery he intended to sell today with a replica I painted myself, using pigments mixed with a chemical agent that liquefies under the heat of stage lights." The room erupted. Cameras flashed wildly. Marcus lunged toward her, but Victor grabbed his arm, his face grim. "Shut up, you fool. She's baiting you. You swapped it." "Where is the original forgery?" Marcus hissed. "Safe," Elena said. "Along with your real ledgers." She pulled a small tablet from her pocket and synced it to the massive screen behind the podium, replacing the ruined painting with a spreadsheet. "You thought you were just selling fake art." Elena addressed the room, her voice steady. "But the Thorne Gallery is actually a laundering machine. These spreadsheets show how Marcus and Viktor Volkov have been washing money for cartels in Sinaloa and arms dealers in Eastern Europe, using inflated art prices to hide the transactions." She scrolled down. "And here are the bribes paid to customs officials in Geneva and New York." Viktor Volkov pulled a gun. The room screamed. "Nerf," he bellowed in Russian. "Give me the tablet, little mouse, or I will paint the walls with you." Marcus regained his composure, standing behind Victor. "You see, Elena? You overplayed your hand. No one gets out of here with that information." Elena didn't flinch. She looked at the gun, then back at Marcus. "You know, Marcus, You always said my father was weak because he cared about the truth. You killed him to protect your lies. You was collateral damage, Marcus spat, just like you are now. Victor, finish it. I wouldn't do that, Elena said softly. Look at the screen. The spreadsheet disappeared, replaced by a live video feed. It showed the interior of a high-tech server room. That's my secure server in Zurich, Marcus stammered. How? At 900 a.m. this morning, while you were preparing your speech, I initiated a data transfer, Elena explained. Every document, every forged provenance, every communication with the cartels is currently being uploaded to Interpol, the FBI, and the Financial Crimes Division of Scotland Yard. The upload is 98% complete. She looked at Victor. If you shoot me, the upload finishes. If you don't shoot me, the upload finishes. You've already lost. Sirens began to wail outside, getting louder by the second. The heavy oak doors of the gallery burst open. Armed police in tactical gear flooded the room, led by a stern-faced chief inspector. Marcus Thorne, Victor Volkov, drop your weapons! You are under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and accessory to murder. Victor dropped the gun, cursing under his breath. Marcus looked at Elena, his eyes wide with the terrifying realization of total defeat. He looked small, pathetic, stripped of his arrogance. You, Marcus whispered. You were just sewing. I was mending. Elena corrected him as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. I was mending the tapestry of lies you built, pulling the threads until the whole thing fell apart. Marcus and Victor were dragged out through the very crowd that had adored them minutes earlier. The news crews had a field day. The mouse who roared. The fallout was immense. The Thorne Gallery was seized. The international art market crashed temporarily as thousands of works had to be re-authenticated. Marcus Thorne, facing life in prison without parole and terrified of Victor's associates, turned state's witness, exposing a network of corruption that spanned 3 continents. 6 months later, Elena stood in a small sunlit studio in Paris. It smelled of turpentine and linseed oil, the smell of her childhood. She was carefully cleaning a genuine 16th-century portrait. A lawyer entered the room holding a thick portfolio. Du Bois, he said, using her rightful name. The liquidation of Marcus Thorne's legitimate assets is complete. As the primary whistleblower and victim of financial fraud, the courts have awarded you a substantial portion of the estate, totaling roughly £80 million. Elena didn't stop working. Put it in the trust fund. Charles. The entire amount. But surely you want to keep some. Elena stopped and looked at a framed photograph on her desk. It was her father, Henry, smiling proudly in front of the Louvre. The money is blood money, Charles, Elena said softly. It will be used to establish the Henry Du Bois Foundation. We will use it to fund authenticators, support artists exploited by dealers like Marcus, and hunt down stolen art to return it to its rightful owners. She picked up her brush again. Marcus built an empire on lies to buy respect. I'm going to use his empire to buy back the truth. They had called her a mouse, ignoring the fact that mice are patient, quiet, and capable of undermining the strongest foundations until the entire house collapses. Elena hadn't just gotten revenge, she had purified the legacy her father died to protect. Some victories aren't won with loud noises, they are won with the quiet, relentless pull of a single thread.